The inheritance plot. In a quiet suburban neighborhood, a heated argument erupted inside a modest home. The voices carried through the thin walls, catching the attention of a neighbor, Mrs. Carter, who peered through her window. She saw a man, her neighbor, Mr. Thompson, yelling at his wife, Sarah. The situation was escalating, and Mrs. Carter felt a knot of fear tighten in her stomach. She couldn't just stand by and do nothing. Grabbing her phone, she dialed 911. "There's a domestic dispute at 42 Maple Street," she whispered urgently. "It sounds bad. Please send someone quickly." The aftermath. The police arrived within minutes, breaking up the fight. Mr. Thompson was taken into custody, while Sarah, visibly shaken, was escorted to a safe location. But this wasn't just a simple case of domestic violence. As the officers dug deeper, they uncovered a tangled web of deceit, greed, and betrayal. Sarah revealed that her husband had been acting strangely for months. She suspected he was involved in something shady, but she couldn't prove it. What she didn't know was that Mr. Thompson had been conspiring with his brother, David, and David's wife, Linda, to manipulate a life insurance policy. The plan was sinister. They wanted to cash in on Sarah's death. The witness comes forward. Mrs. Carter, the neighbor who had called the police, became a key witness. She had seen more than just the argument that night. Over the past few weeks, she had noticed suspicious activity around the Thompson house, strange visitors, late-night phone calls, and even a private investigator lurking nearby. She shared everything she knew with the police, and the pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place. The investigation deepens. Detective Ramirez, a seasoned investigator, took charge of the case. He discovered that Mr. Thompson and his brother had been moving money around, trying to hide it in overseas accounts. They had even taken out a life insurance policy on Sarah, naming themselves as beneficiaries. The plan was chilling. They wanted to stage her death and collect the payout. But their scheme began to unravel when Sarah found a text message on her husband's phone. It was a conversation between Mr. Thompson and his brother, discussing the details of the plan. Horrified, she confronted him, leading to the violent argument that Mrs. Carter had witnessed. The courthouse drama. The case went to trial, and the courtroom was filled with tension. Sarah testified against her husband, revealing the extent of his betrayal. Mrs. Carter's testimony was crucial, as she provided details about the suspicious activity she had observed. The prosecution presented evidence of the life insurance policy, the text messages, and the money transfers. As the trial progressed, it became clear that Mr. Thompson and his brother were not acting alone. They had enlisted the help of a corrupt private investigator and a shady lawyer to cover their tracks. But their plan backfired when the lawyer, fearing exposure, turned on them and cooperated with the authorities. The fallout. In the end, Mr. Thompson and his brother were found guilty of conspiracy to commit murder and fraud. They were sentenced to life in prison, their greed and betrayal costing them their freedom. Sarah, though traumatized, found solace in knowing the truth and was able to rebuild her life. Mrs. Carter, the brave neighbor who had stepped forward, was hailed as a hero. Her quick thinking and willingness to speak up had saved Sarah's life and brought the criminals to justice. The case left a lasting impact on the small community. It served as a stark reminder that evil often hides in plain sight, and that the bonds of family can sometimes be twisted by greed. But it also showed the power of courage and the importance of standing up for what's right. As for Sarah, she moved away from Maple Street, leaving behind the memories of betrayal and starting anew. And Mrs. Carter, she continued to watch over her neighborhood, ever vigilant, knowing that sometimes the smallest actions can make the biggest difference.